Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, the regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me this afternoon, we have Sebastian Banescu, co-founder and CEO of Chainproof, as well as Bob VanKirk, president and CEO of SonicWall. We're here to discuss modernizing cybersecurity best practices and solutions for today's threat environment. Gentlemen, it's great to have the both of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talk, certainly an important topic for enterprises across every vertical. Sebastian, give us a quick introduction to what you're doing at Chainproof.
Thanks for having me, Jill. It's a pleasure to be here. At Chainproof, we specialize in securing Web3 companies against smart contract hacks, slashing risks, custody risks. And when I say securing, we do both a deep technical analysis of all their vulnerabilities, as well as provide cyber insurance.
And Bob, where does SonicWall fit within the ecosystem?
Yeah, and Jill, great to be on again with you. So SonicWall has been in existence 30 years now, providing cybersecurity capabilities, everything ranging from endpoint to firewalls across the network to cloud edge and managed security services all around, providing the key layers of security for organizations globally.
Yeah, and Bob, I know a lot keeps you up at night, but as it relates to today's environment, what cyber threats are really among the current trends with these bad actors?
Yeah, great question. Actually, Jill, timing couldn't be better on that because yesterday we released our mid-year threat report that saw an 11% increase year over year in just the sheer number of cyber attacks. Now, what's concerning is that's on a 20% increase on the prior year, which was a double-digit increase, seeing the year prior. So we're continuing to see a significant increase in the number of attacks. But the other concerning piece is how quickly the threat actors are pivoting from one attack vector to the next, whether that be malware, ransomware, supply chain attacks, IoT. So they are absolutely moving quickly to where the opportunity exists, also by geography.
Mm-hmm. And Sebastian, where do you see the biggest threats?
Well, the landscape is ever evolving. In the beginning, in the Web3 space, we saw a lot of sophisticated smart contract hacks. But nowadays, we see, like a lot of social engineering happening because Web3 projects are using more and more Web2 technologies. So I don't have like the month over month or year over year increase. But last month, there were hacks in the Web3 space that totaled over 168 million. And that was just 1 month. This month, I think that number has already been surpassed. Somehow this month, I think a lot of black hat hackers are on vacation and they're spending those vacation days having fun,
Yeah. So, Bob, there's a couple things to unpack here. Why are we seeing such increase in these numbers? Is it related to the Gen AI products that are being rushed to market? I mean, AI is nothing new.
No, great question, and you hear Gen AI every day. I mean, we actually have been leveraging an aspect of AI for years. In fact, we encounter millions upon millions of attacks every day. In fact, if you consider a normal workday is 8 hours, our firewalls on average, across our 1.2 million sensors are seeing attacks that exceed that 8 hours. On average, 10 to 12 hours a day, they're under attack. And in fact, the hours where we see the greatest attacks are early morning, in a given geo. So we leverage machine learning. We're processing millions of attacks every single day. The only way to keep up with that sheer number of attacks is leveraging, AI and machine learning. Now, we're also leveraging AI to, whether it be from a support standpoint, whether it be from a product standpoint, again, all around how we can increase productivity, better safeguard our customers and partners.
Sebastian, would you say the impact of AI is fully priced in, or is there still a lot of unknowns out there?
I don't think it's priced in, definitely, especially like in when I'm talking about crypto, right? And for me, the most jaw-dropping attack was presented, I don't know, a few months ago, I think, a bank employee was social engineered into transferring a sum of $25 million from, like the bank he was working at, while he was on a Zoom call with multiple colleagues and the company CEO, right? And this was a bank in Hong Kong.
Mhm.
And it turned out that all of the participants on that call were deepfakes. And, like he basically saw so many people that he knew. He saw the CEO and he was convinced, right? So for me, it's jaw-dropping that, like attackers are going to such lengths
Yeah.
to use Gen AI in very creative ways to social engineer people. And I think like it's just the beginning.
I feel like it's happened so quickly too. Just in the past couple of years with deepfakes that you even see on the Web 2 social media levels. We had a CEO on our show yesterday. It's a private company where there was a deepfake generated by one of these applications where she was announcing a funding round, which
Oh,
totally
wow.
changes the calculus. And it was her. It was her voice, and she has a very distinct voice. If you heard it, you would think it was her, looked like her. And this is so concerning to me, Bob. Are the good actors doing enough to catch up to the bad actors, or are they just so well funded and they don't have the restrictions and guardrails and regulations that the good actors may have? They can't act as quickly.
It remains a cyber arms race. I think it's cat and mouse. It's how do we attempt to keep up? I mean, there's no question. I mean, 80% of our SOC analysts are seeing, or our SOC analysts are seeing 80% of their attacks related to credential theft, to Sebastian's point, right? And, phishing emails just a couple years back, you could tell through syntax and especially non-English speaking, you could pretty much hone in on, okay, that makes no sense. That definitely isn't from Bob VanKirk. Now it is incredibly sharp relative to the business email compromise and the syntax that of these phishing attacks that are occurring. And again, to your point, relative to what you saw with that CEO, it becomes very, very difficult to identify those.
Yeah, it certainly does. So let's talk about this for a moment here with modernizing your cybersecurity strategy, and Sebastian, being able to effectively communicate these needs to the board and to the C-suite and senior management, because everybody is jockeying for resources when it comes to the tech stack, right? Everybody wants to go to market with a new product, but to, show to be that vulnerable and to have this kind of exposure, I would think that cyber spend and strategy would be a priority, because it comes down to brand. It can impact your stock price if you're public. It can impact your revenue lines, your product lines.
Totally. Yeah. When it comes to modernizing cybersecurity, I think CISOs have it hard. On the one hand, you want to keep your organization pretty homogeneous, such that like you don't have increased costs in doing, threat intelligence on a whole different set of platforms, like operating systems and tools and so on, right? But on the other hand, if you have like too much homogeneity, I mean, we just saw what happened with, CrowdStrike and how much it affected companies where they were using only Microsoft Windows, right? So companies that used multiple operating systems, they could just like, figure things out. But ones that were like, trying to keep everything maybe like super clean, use just one operating system, be very secure from that perspective, ended up creating, a single point of failure. And I don't think anyone expected that, right? So I think it's hard to modernize because we still need to keep enough diversification in place, and that just blows up the costs exponentially. When you're managing multiple systems at the same organization, just a nightmare for CISOs.
Right. And I understand having, a diverse operating system, if you will, for lack of a better term, but doesn't that also expose you to potential threats because you're bringing more vendors, more, your data is exposed because there's more touch points? I would imagine that's a really delicate balance for CISOs and risk managers to be able to maintain.
Was that for me or for
Yes,
Bob?
yes, Sebastian, I'm following up with you.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I meant. So, you know, having more, you know, like maybe not diversified operating system, but more operating systems that you handle is just gonna increase costs to a level that becomes, and also the risks. So I give it all to you, you know, like that's why the costs are increased because you need to manage all those different risks. You know, you have like uh, very different, you know, like threat landscapes when it comes to iOS or Linux or Microsoft Windows, and you have different vendors that you would need to interface with in order to mitigate those risks. So like that's why what I meant, like, you know, maybe you say, I'm just gonna use 3 operating systems, Windows, iOS, and Linux, but that's gonna like exponentially blow up your risks, your
Right.
threats, and also your costs.
Right. So Bob, let me ask that to you in a different way and follow on Sebastian's point. The more vendors, the more exposure your data has to third parties. So when you think about strategy and governance and best practices, what are your recommendations there?
Yeah, and to hit your first point, Jill, it absolutely is a C-level topic, discussion, priority, and a board level. So, you know, I agree 100% with you and Sebastian on that. You know, one area that we're 100% go-to-market via partners and managed security providers, managed security service providers. And, you know, one key layer of security that is paramount these days. And you know, we added this last year, but it's not about us. It's about what does, you know, a medium-sized business need? What does a large business need? And that's 24/7 by 365 SOC support around managed detection and response. We can't afford that, you know, as far as an end customer, but we offer this service to our partners and customers because it is an essential layer. Many customers can't afford that. Many large customers can't afford it, but it is absolutely a layer of security that, you know, when people get in and the threat actors, you know, if they want to get in, they will get in. You need someone there that is looking at the alerts, can sift through and say, okay, this is one you really need to be, again, focused on and can immediately take action. That is a critical piece. We added that to our again, solution portfolio, and we believe that's fundamental moving forward.
And Bob, there are two sides of this equation as well, right? So you're mitigating attacks, but then God forbid you should have an attack, then you have the response side of the equation as well.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's both. It's not just identifying it. And again, as I shared earlier, you know, the majority of the attacks that we identify are off hours. So you need someone that's an extension of your team. We white label our service. We don't, you know, we're fine if our partners take credit for it, but it is so critical to have that layer of security that's constantly looking.
Yeah. Sebastian, would you say providing cybersecurity solutions in Web3 is either more challenging or more efficient than it was in prior iterations of the internet, like Web 1 or 2?
It depends what you mean by more efficient. One thing that I
Or more
realized
effective.
that
Yeah.
Sorry?
Or more effective.
More effective. Oh, okay. So I think the industry is not as mature as the traditional industry that we like how people call it in Web3. It's definitely difficult to convince companies that they should invest in security because that's sort of their main anchor, right? Like if they get hacked in this space, it's pretty much game over. Like if a project gets hacked, they have no way of coming back. I mean, we've seen some projects trying to come back after a hack, and they were not very successful because people just don't trust that project anymore with their funds. So I think, you know, the industry still needs to mature in using different services, you know, similar to what we see in the traditional internet businesses. You know, like there are so few companies in Web3 that have a 24/7 SOC. I think I could count them on one hand, probably, you know. But at the same time, they're managing billions and billions worth of crypto assets, right? So you can see that there's more maturity that is needed for this space before we can employ a holistic security approach. Right now, everyone is looking to do what is called as a security audit, which is no more than a code review of their code. And they've checked the box for security, and they don't necessarily do more, right? Because that's the industry de facto standard.
Got it. And Bob, to wrap up here, I actually want to discuss governance for a moment, because you have 30 years of data at SonicWall, right? And of course, the fundamental of everything in this business, particularly AI, is around data. So what are your best recommendations for governance? How do you approach it at SonicWall?
Well, it's something I take seriously, and the board, our owners, take seriously. It's something that we practice every week. I get routine updates multiple times a month. Relative to, putting measures in place, it may sound crazy coming from a security, provider, but, don't throw technology at it. It's the processes, it's all the safeguards, it's training, it's patching. There are so many items that come before the actual, hardware or software itself that are fundamental to protecting your brand, protecting your enterprise, that are critical. And you need them. If you're a CEO, C-level board member, you have to make it a priority every day to stay focused on that. Because to Sebastian's point, many companies, especially mid and small, they experience attack, they're out of business.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Appreciate both of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.